Welcome to Tech Savvy. My name is Leigh Newman and I'm the Executive Director of the Campus Operations for West Georgia Tech in LaGrange. And we are thrilled about everything that we're accomplishing out there. We are getting excited about spring semester. We are enrolling students. We are about to complete our fall semester very successfully, and we've just got good stuff going on. Our special guest star today is a very impressive person. We're real excited about having her. We're honored to have her on our campus as part of our faculty and our staff. Her name is Kylie Yearwood, and Kylie is the program director of the LPN program.
Yes.
And it's campus-wide, so it's not just for LaGrange, it's for like all...
Murphy and Coweta campuses as well.
Yes. Oh, and that is a big deal. That is a big deal because I was looking at enrollment figures. How many people do we have enrolled in our health sciences programs?
Well, as a total in our health sciences program, I'm not sure.
It was like 1,400 people.
Yeah, a whole lot of people. But in our LPN program, we accept... In the fall, we accept 20 students on each campus, so that's 60, just in the LPN program.
And in the RN program, it's about the same type number.
Right, and they have multiple cohorts where they have admissions in the fall and the spring and the summer as well.
But LPN, you only can start in the fall.
At this time, but we're looking to change that.
So we can accommodate more students.
Exactly. That's our goal, is to be able to accommodate more people and get them in quickly.
And get them out quickly.
That's right.
Well, I am so proud to be a part of all this. I was lucky enough to go through a tour several months ago and got to see the equipment that we're using in training. Please describe some of the things that it's like they're mannequins, but they're almost live. Right.
Well, we call them simulation mannequins. Simulation is not new to a lot of people in education. It's mostly, it was first seen with pilots learning how to fly airplanes. And so based on those simulation techniques, now we have it's crossover into healthcare, not just in nursing, but in the medical profession as well. Doctors practice with simulated mannequins as well. And it's a wonderful adjunct to our real life experience at the clinical sites. But we're very excited on the LaGrange campus. We have 3 particularly special simulation mannequins. One is a sim man who, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, not a sim man, a vital sim, which is a mannequin that can be either a man or a woman, just depending on how you change out their anatomy. But this mannequin you can take vital signs on the mannequin. You can have the mannequin say things back to the student. The mannequin produces breath sounds and heart sounds, so they can actually put their stethoscope on the mannequin and we can set it for whatever sound we want them to be able to auscultate or listen to. So that's really exciting for us as instructors because you don't always get the experience to hear, special sounds like heart murmurs or wheezes or, specific, adventitious sounds that you may not hear every time you go to the clinical site are available, whenever we want them right there in the lab.
Yeah.
Another mannequin that we have is the Medi Man, who also has all of those same capabilities, but he also has a speaker, an internal speaker, so you can speak for him and you can actually have him interact with the students. He blinks. He can have a hemorrhage. You can start IVs on him. He also has the breath sounds, the heart sounds, bowel sounds. You can start a Foley catheter and actually get simulated urine. It's extremely interesting. And then the third mannequin that we have that I know that you were most impressed with is our Noelle, who is a maternity simulation mannequin. And the one that we have is it can actually deliver a baby. You can set how fast or how slow you want the delivery to go. You can have different simulation scenarios where maybe the cord comes out first, which is a condition we call prolapse cord, in which you have to do specific nursing interventions. So you can change it up and have the students have to react, real time to what's going on with the patient. And it's safe. The thing with simulation is that they're able to learn and to experience what it's like to be in a situation where they have to think on their feet without being in a situation where they would be exposed to blood or body fluids, or that they might endanger a patient because they're a brand new student. So this is really a safe way to get their feet in the water, so to speak.
That to me is so impressive because, if you do it, if you practice the different simulations, then you'll be a whole lot more prepared for the real thing.
Right.
And you won't freeze.
Right. We even had, we have checkoffs as part of our LPN program, and that's part of any nursing program. There's certain lab skills that you have to check off on before you're allowed to go into the clinical sites. One of those is NG tube placement, which is where you have to pass a tube through the nose into the stomach. And so as part of this, one of the things that can happen when you put in an NG tube is that if it goes into the airway instead of the esophagus, the patient can cough or become short of breath, and of course at that time you should immediately remove it. Well, up until we had the vital sim and these opportunities, we just had to kind of practice with the little non-speaking, non-noise making mannequins and tell them, okay, this is how you put it down, and they would practice putting it down and doing the steps, and then we would have to practice on a real person. Well, this past...
I'd hate to be that real person you had to practice on.
Well, exactly. Well, at that point it's not practice because they've already checked off.
Okay.
And they do know the steps, but we have another step now between checking off on the skill and going to a real patient, and that is that we use the simulation mannequin. So what we have done this last time with our lab checkoffs is that we would have the controller that the instructor uses to control the patient. As they were putting the NG tube down, we could make the patient cough or become short of breath and not give them this information ahead of time. So, and each situation was different. So even though the students were able to visualize what was going on with the other students, not every situation was the same. Sometimes we had them vomit or gag, and they had to deal with that because that happens in real life.
Right.
And so it gave them an opportunity to see, okay, it's not just as simple as putting the tube down. There's other things involved, and one of the main things that we try to teach them is you have to take care of the patient. I understand that you know the skills and you can say step 1, step 2, step 3, but if you're not paying attention to the patient as a whole, then you're not doing your job.
Right.
Your job is to take care of the patient. So that really gives us that edge.
Well, you can't teach some people the concern. They have to practice it.
Right, experience it.
Experience it. That is so impressive. Do these mannequin simulators, when you say that, do they have the esophagus and the airway?
Some of them do. The more advanced ones do. Mm-hmm. Now, the Vital Sim that we have in LaGrange does not have that specification, but it's up to the instructor. Mm-hmm. If they, and really in real life, that's kind of how the situation would be. You may not know that you're going into the airway unless the patient coughs or is short of breath. Mm-hmm. So that's, it's kind of like controlled by the instructor. They decide what happens next.
This is such a perfect example of how technical education is so effective.
It really is.
Because it's hands-on. You're trained, mm-hmm. you're having your classes, but then you get to experience it before you're out on the road. So when these students, when they graduate or when they go to clinicals, they have experience.
Exactly. So we can actually take, and most of the time when we do simulation lab, we actually start in the classroom with either an online article or a discussion or an activity of some sort and bring it over into the lab. Mm-hmm. So they're actually taking the theory that they're learning and putting it into practice right away.
That's the best way to learn.
Mm-hmm.
That is so impressive. I just, of course, seeing that baby being born in the lab was a little hairy there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, this is such a great learning experience.
It really
for somebody.
is.
It's just, they won't be shocked when they see it the
exactly.
first time.
And I remember my maternity clinicals when I was in nursing school, and it was kind of the luck of the draw because you got one day to go through labor and delivery, and if somebody happened to have a baby while you were there, you got to see it. If they didn't, you didn't get that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Now everybody gets to see it.
and experience and practice it.
Exactly.
And deal with it.
Exactly.
That's very impressive. You were talking about it earlier, how you were able to change, like y'all did the simulation and the baby, I guess the mother was given the wrong medicine or something.
Right. This was actually a simulation project that I worked on as part of my education, and we actually did this on the Murphy campus, which is located in Waco, Georgia. They have a Noel as well, but it's a little more advanced Noel too. And in that. With that mannequin, you have a laptop where you can create scenarios. You can, monitor the patient's labor. You can make it faster, slower. The patient can have a postpartum hemorrhage. They can go into shock, and then of course they have the heart monitor. And in this simulation scenario, if the students did not report to the physician that was on call and not the patient's regular physician, that the patient had a history of hypertension, then the script said for the doctor to give them the order for Methergin, which is a medication that's contraindicated when the patient has a history of hypertension. So in giving that, the patient went into a different set of affairs and actually ended up having some heart problems. But we actually had two groups go through that simulation, and the first group, of course, ended up giving the Methergin. But then immediately during the debrief, they knew exactly what they had done wrong, and they were like, I know what it was. It was the Methergin because she had had high blood pressure. The second group caught it ahead of time and reported the hypertension to the doctor and gave the appropriate medication. So it was really an excellent opportunity.
That is so impressive. And they won't make that mistake again.
No, they won't.
They learned firsthand how to make sure they give all the information that the pertinent information to the doctor.
Right, because when you're there, and see, when we do those type simulation exercises, the instructor is not with the students in the room. They're there observing the students.
Can't say anything.
But they cannot say anything. So the students are really, truly there on their own. And so when you give a medicine to a patient and you think you're doing the right thing, and the patient's blood pressure starts to drop, or they start complaining of chest pain, or their vital signs change, then it really is a wake-up call. You're like, what? Their looks on their faces are like, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
And so they really start that critical thinking process, which is so important in nursing. I'm very excited about the simulation equipment that we have.
Well, I'm very proud of it too. We're done with our first block, so let's take a break and come back and let's talk about specifics of our program and the competitive selection and all the details that people might be interested in.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Tech Savvy. We have a great special guest star today, Kylie Yearwood, who's the program director for our LPN program. She was spending a lot of time giving all the details of what our simulators can do for our students and how the training is so specifically hands-on that it really prepares our students for the real world. And in general, that's what technical education does. Kylie, I think this is a good opportunity to let people that may be interested in going into nursing explain to them the process. We have such wonderful instructors in our healthcare programs. I'm so proud to be a part of that group. They have the experience, they've got the knowledge, and they prepare you for the real world.
Absolutely.
In all our programs that I know about. So tell our viewers the process of, from, okay, I think I want to go into nursing, what would be my first step to where they graduate?
Okay. Well, the first step, of course, would be just admission to the college. And once they get admitted to West Georgia Technical College, then there are a few classes that they have to take as prerequisites if they're going into the LPN program, and then there's a few classes that they have to take for the RN program. And those are a little different. Since I'm the LPN program director, I will tell you about the LPN program.
Okay.
To get into the LPN program, we do what's called competitive selection because there is a high demand for nursing education. Like I said, up to this point, we've only pretty much accepted 20 students per campus each fall. So as part of that process, we take the top 20 from our competitive selection review process. And actually how this works is they take their prerequisites, which is an English, a math, a psychology, an anatomy and physiology, and a diet and nutrition. We used to include intro to computers as part of that, but we have recently decided throughout the state with the Technical College System of Georgia, the other practical nursing directors, to remove that as a prerequisite and incorporate it into the actual program. So that's no longer a prerequisite. But those 5 classes they must take and pass with a C. And then they have to take the PSB, which is an entrance exam to our nursing program. So they take the PSB and those courses, and then the students with the top scores on the PSB and the top averages in those prerequisites are the ones that are chosen, the top 20 from the list. And then they're accepted into the program. The deadline right now, because we all accept in the fall, is May 22nd. So if you were interested in beginning next fall of 2015, then you would need to get your classes, your prerequisites done by the end of this coming spring semester, and take the PSB and all of that turned in before May 22nd.
The PSB, is it a skills type test or is it more of a personality?
No, it's a standardized type healthcare occupations readiness type test.
Okay.
So it tests you, a little bit of English and a little bit of math, because math is important in nursing when you're calculating dosages and drugs. And so a little, just to make sure that you're ready to come into the program. And then once you're accepted, after that May 22nd deadline, we take the top 20. We usually send out acceptance letters in July. Then you start in August. You go throughout the program. It's a 3-semester program. You start in the fall, you take spring, and then you end in the summer, and you graduate in July.
Wow.
And that's for the LPN program. And then, of course, you sit for the NCLEX, which is the state board test. And once you pass that, then you can practice as an LPN.
And where would you go? Where are the jobs for LPNs?
Well, there's a rumor that I've heard from a lot of people when they hear me say that I teach in the LPN program or that I'm the LPN program director. They're like, well, I've heard that the LPNs are going out, like they're not hiring LPNs. I cannot emphasize more that that is not true. The National League for Nursing, which is the professional organization that is closely related to the education of nurses, has just recently put out an article that said that the increase in need for LPNs will be about 22% by the year 2020. So it is actually a growing industry, not a failing industry. It's not going to be in the acute care setting where a lot of people think of nurses automatically, like at the hospital or emergency care or critical care. It's not going to be there. That's where your RNs are going to go. But we are at long-term care, nursing homes, rehabilitation centers, community clinics, community centers, the jails, the school systems, school nurses. I have 2 students that graduated the year before last that are working as case managers at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America in Noonan.
Wow.
So to say that there's not opportunities is false. There are opportunities. Especially with the geriatric population, our baby boomers, as we know, are aging, and so there's going to be a big increase in the need for nursing and competent nurses, because I don't know about you, but when my mom or dad or myself has to go into a long-term care facility, I want there to be a competent nurse there to take care of them.
Certainly.
So this is something that we focus on. We focus on the geriatric population.
Because there's a bunch of them coming up. Right.
Exactly. So this is where the LPNs are going. We're not decreasing in jobs. It's just in a different area than you would traditionally think of nurses.
Right. Well, I'm just competent nurses, whether it's an LPN or RN or even a medical assistant, you've got to know a lot.
Absolutely.
And it's very important because you're dealing with people's lives, no matter what. And so the competitive selection, sounds like to me, if you're interested in it, you need to have you say a C is or better, you need to do really well,
Right.
because 20 is not very many people.
Right.
When, like I said, there was 1,400 in healthcare
Right.
at West Georgia Tech alone.
Right.
So 20 or 60, since we have the 3 programs out of 1,400, is kind of tight.
Right.
And it does sound like to me it would be a good move on our part to have another cohort started
Right.
up, maybe in the spring. Is that what you're talking about?
That's what we're thinking, because right now the summer semester is not, it's so short.
Right.
It's shorter than the other semesters. We just don't know how we would get, because the first semester of the program concerns your fundamentals, your basic nursing care, and the pharmacology. And so we just don't know how we would fit that in such a small span of time. But we're thinking about doing a fall and a spring cohort.
I think that's great. Tell me an example when you were talking about the programs like the fundamentals. What type skills are considered fundamentals? What would you?
Well, your fundamentals are your basic patient care. Everything from bed baths and feeding a patient to Foley catheters, NG tube insertion, trach care, trach suctioning. We have. Let me think of some. We do teach them IV insertion. I know there's some confusion about that, because I know some LPNs are not trained in school for IV insertion. They do that after they get out of school, but we do train our LPNs in IV insertion and IV care, blood draws, medication administration. These are all the basics, and we really, I mean, the first 8 weeks, we tell our students, you know, that's the toughest part, because they go through fundamentals in pharmacology during that 8 weeks. And, you know, we say, usually if you can make it through the first 8 weeks, you can make it.
The rest is downhill.
But because it's a lot of information in a short amount of time.
That's good.
Yes. So,
Because being a nurse is not an easy process.
no, it's not. No, it's not.
And
nursing
stress.
school is not an easy process. But we try to, and we tell them that, you know, from the get-go, if you're interested in nursing, it's not easy to do. It's like a friend of mine said, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Right, right.
But there is something to be said for completing it. Not just a diploma and a job at the end, but a sense of satisfaction and a job in which you feel like you're giving back and taking care of people. So, I mean, there really is a lot to be said for it.
Well, what made you decide to be a nurse?
Well, it's kind of funny, because I really thought from when I was about 13 on that I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to go into the medical profession. And in my senior year of high school, I had taken one too many AP classes and got burned out. And so I was like, you know, I just want to take a break. I don't really want to go to school right now. And I spent 6 months as a receptionist. Nothing wrong with being a receptionist, but it just was not for me. And I was like, okay, I got to go back to school. And so then I started thinking about the medical profession again, and I was like, well, you know, a doctor requires a whole lot of education, and I want something that I can get in there and be doing things and be in the medical profession, but not have to wait 8 years before I start. And so I decided to go with nursing, and that's how I ended up.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
Where'd you work before you were a nurse?
Before
you were an instructor.
Before I was an instructor. Well, I started out right out of school in long-term care with West Georgia Health System at Twin Fountains, and fell in love with my little elderly patients, and I really enjoyed that. And then I did a small amount of time in labor and delivery and occupational health. But my home, before I became an instructor, and I still sometimes consider it my home, because we all have a specialization that we claim, and that's the emergency department.
Really?
So spent the last 8 or so years, even since I've been an instructor, just working their PRN to, you know, keep my skills up. But I really do. I love it.
That says a lot about you, because that could be such a burnout situation.
It can be, but it gives you an opportunity to see a million different things.
Exactly.
And I think I'm biased, but I think the best nursing instructors come from the emergency department.
Well, of course, they've got
Right.
most experience. That is true.
Yeah.
Well, Kylie, we've about done. We've done a lot. This has been a great episode to hear all about our nursing program.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, will you come back?
Yes. If you would like for me to come back, I'll come back.
I would love for you to come back, and I really want to talk to some of your students, because I want our viewers to see what a successful program we have in our nursing areas and in our medical fields, because it's the sign of the times.
Right.
We've got to have competent nurses, but we want to make sure that they have the patient care skills too.
Right.
It's all one big package.
Absolutely.
So. Well, thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to having you back and giving us an update on all your simulators.
I will.
All right. And thank you again for joining us. We've had another great episode and look forward to seeing you on our next episode.